Welcome back to Twisted and Mysterious. This is part 2 of the podcast. Enjoy.
All 4 girls had been stripped completely naked. They were gagged and bound with their hands behind their backs with articles of their own clothing. Their other clothing was found folded and stacked against a wall. I think 2 of the girls' underwear was missing, and Amy's leather jacket was also missing. They had all been shot in the back of the head once, all except for little Amy. So, Jennifer, Sarah, and Eliza were found, stacked. And, I know, it's icky.
It's very icky.
I think Sarah was kind of off to the side, but I even hate using this terminology, but she was still, kind of part of the, pile, or however we want to refer to that awfulness. So, Amy was found farther away towards the bathrooms. Jennifer, Sarah, and Eliza were burned beyond recognition. Because Amy was found farther away, she had less severe burns, but she also had something around her neck, so it's believed that she was also strangled.
Yeah.
And she was also shot twice. So the first shot, and also how all the other girls were shot, came from a .22 caliber pistol to the back of the head, so execution style. But that perhaps she didn't die right away, and then she was shot a second time with a .38, and this shot went through the back of her head and exited her cheek.
Yikes.
Yep. So I listened to the Mile Higher podcast, and they...
Kendall Ray.
Oh, okay. I've never heard of them before.
Her regular channel, or her original channel, or whatever, is True Crime with Kendall Ray.
Oh, okay.
But she also does a podcast with her husband, which is the Mile Higher podcast.
Oh, okay.
Because they live in Colorado.
Yeah, I figured Colorado because Mile Higher, but this was the first time I had ever listened to them. But they said that Amy was still alive when she was found and then died a short time later.
Yeah.
I tried to corroborate that, and I couldn't find it anywhere else.
Yeah, it's so weird when there's one source that says something and you can't find it anywhere else.
Yeah.
I find that a lot just in general when I'm researching for stories. I'm just just for any information, because people will have so much information and detailed background stuff and whatnot, and I'm just where did y'all get this information? Because I'm not finding it.
Because I even Googled specifically those words, trying to corroborate it, and I couldn't find it anywhere else. So I don't know where they got that information from. I'm not saying that they were wrong.
Yeah.
I cannot find another source that gives that information. So I don't know if that's true or not. Either way, it's terrible.
But yeah, I think Kendall's podcast was the first time that I heard about the Gannon Stout case.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I need a drink. Okay, so horribly, Amy was also sexually assaulted. I think that it's unclear because of the horrible conditions of the other girls' bodies, whether they were raped or not. I don't know if they've been able to figure that out, with new testing or whatever, but the crime scene investigators were able to extract DNA from an unknown male from Amy's vaginal swab.
Right.
And Sergeant John Jones said that when he walked into the building, it was everything was black and gray except for Amy, because she was farther away, and so she didn't get burned the other ones did. So clearly this is a crime scene.
Yeah.
And it was also a fire, again, I think I said this already, that was assumed to be in an empty business. So when the firefighters showed up, that's what they thought. They didn't think to check for people because the store was closed, the lights were off. They just assumed it was, And then the fire was so hot that they had to use like an excessive amount of water to put it out. So the crime scene is just obliterated at this point. I mean, one, the fire, and then two, all of the water and the trampling around from the firefighters before they even found the girls. I think on the Mile Higher podcast as well, they had mentioned a quote from one of the firefighters that, like, they don't even know if, like, they may have accidentally stepped on the girls.
Exactly.
Because they couldn't see what was going on.
The smoke was so thick.
Yeah. And so, you know, it was just, like, completely destroyed in there. And Sergeant John Jones, I had watched 48 Hours. He was interviewed on that. And he said that because of all of the smoke and the ash, it was, like, virtually impossible to take fingerprints. Because there just was no surface that was not just destroyed by something.
Yeah.
They did find, because I guess the front of the store wasn't really burned, I guess, because this fire was in the back room.
Right.
And so they were able to check the cash register, and they found that at 11:03, the cash register recorded a no sale, which is probably somebody pushing the button to open the cash drawer. There was about $450 missing, but there was a bank bag underneath the counter with cash in it that was left untouched, and it doesn't look like anybody even went into the office as far as they could tell. And so they were like, well, was this a robbery? And, like, I can't get on board with that.
It sounds more like an afterthought, or like somebody was trying to stage it as a robbery.
Right. Because, you know, I understand that crime shows are not real, but, you know, according to Criminal Minds, this would be like sexual sadism. Because remember the episode where there was the bank robber that was, like, stripping everybody?
Vaguely.
And so they were like, this isn't just a bank robber. You know, like, regular bank robbers aren't going to do this. And so if the motive was to rob the store, and there were at least 2 men, possibly 3 if we count the hinky guy who went to the bathroom earlier, 4 teenage girls would have been easy to rob.
Right.
I'm sure they would have just handed the money over, no questions asked, especially if both of those men were carrying guns. You don't systematically strip them completely naked, sexually assault them, and then start a fire to cover evidence over $450.
Right. That's what I'm saying. It sounds more like an afterthought, like, why not take the money, or like they were trying to stage something.
Right. Yeah, I think they went in there to kill at least Jennifer and Eliza, even if they didn't know that Sarah and Amy were there. I think that they went in there to kill those girls. So, as for the fire, I don't know how they determine things from fires.
No.
But they believe that it was started around 11:42 p.m. So, remember, the girls locked the door at like 10 till 11.
Yeah.
And then...
like about an hour before that.
Yeah. And then there was that no sale at 11:03. And then this is starting a fire at 11:42. So they had like an hour to do all of the horrible things that they did.
Right.
It's believed that the killers poured lighter fluid on some styrofoam cups in the storeroom and set them on fire. And I don't know if this is still the case, but styrofoam at this time was incredibly flammable and would burn extremely hot and then would melt and stick to whatever it was, like tar.
Right.
And this fire had been so hot that rungs on a ladder had been melted completely away. From the podcast Unsolved website, they said that there was another theory that the killers might have filled styrofoam cups with lighter fluid and placed them on or near the girls' bodies to increase the spread of the flames. But I don't think that that can be confirmed, because when I was watching 48 Hours, Sergeant Jones claimed that the girls' bodies were never tested for lighter fluid, because he even had thought that at some point they should have exhumed them to do that testing. I don't know if it would still be there, but
yeah, I don't know.
Just to check. They also give a detail that I hadn't read anywhere else. They said that the killers had also contaminated the scene by putting chocolate syrup and like yogurt and toppings on and around the bodies of the girls. Whether it was just solely contamination or just for sadistic pleasure.
Yeah.
We're probably never going to know that. So, whatever.
For funsies.
Yeah, for disgusting funsies. Well, whatever happened, they know that it had to have happened shortly after the doors were locked for the store. And this is just based on the evidence of how the girls were cleaning and where they stopped. Because the people who owned this chain had very, like, strict, like, steps for cleaning and an order for cleaning. And that Jennifer and Eliza were both very, like, good at following this. Like, they, you know, always did the same things. So, the chairs were stacked on all of the tables except for the table where the two men were sitting. The napkin dispensers were all filled except for the one where the two men were sitting. And so this indicates that Jennifer or Eliza, I think it was Jennifer, was kind of like cleaning around these men to get closed.
Yeah.
They also found a rag on the table, like one of the girls had been using it and had abandoned it mid-task because something had happened. The key was also still in the front door, so it wasn't like you had taken it out and gone out and then were accosted outside. It was like it probably happened right after those people left. So, I am not blaming anybody that was in that store that night. But there were people who came forward that were like, well, I didn't like the look of those guys, or I didn't like the look of that guy in the military jacket or whatever. And I was just thinking, I hope myself that if I were in a store late at night and it was children working and there was some creep in the store, that I would be like, do you want me to hang out until they're gone? You know?
I'm going to have a cop do a drive-by.
Yeah, do you want me to check on you in a minute? Or, you know, like, I don't know. And I'm not saying, you know, it's not their fault, but it just, I wish somebody had done that.
Yeah.
So, 8 days after the murders, police arrested a 16-year-old boy named Maurice Pierce for carrying a .22 pistol in the waistband of his jeans in the North Cross Mall. His friend Forrest Welborn was also arrested. And because he was carrying a .22, they questioned him about the murders. He claimed that he let his friend Forrest borrow his gun and that Forrest was the one who shot the girls.
Okay.
Forrest vehemently denied this. And he said that on the night of the murders, he, Maurice, and their two friends, Michael Scott and Robert Springsteen, had stolen a car and driven to San Antonio for the weekend. He's like, we weren't even in town. I did not borrow this kid's gun. I did not shoot these people.
We were committing other crimes.
That's right. We were doing different crimes. A detective named Hector Polanco conducted the interviews, and he was known as maybe not using the best interview tactics. Plus, Maurice maybe had some, like, mental health issues. And so, but after the polygraphs were administered, even though Maurice had basically confessed that, you know, he or his friend were part of it, the boys both passed their polygraphs, and they didn't have any evidence to actually tie them to the crime, and so they let them go. And, you know, I was thinking back to, like, How to Make a Murderer, or whatever that show is called. The Making of a Murderer, or... Remember that show on Netflix?
I'm just trying to remember what it's called. I think it's called Making a Murderer.
Yeah. But it's like, you know, I understand cops wanting to get confessions for crimes.
And that cops are allowed to lie and whatnot when they're interrogating people.
But when you have kids, like teenagers, and especially one of them that may or may not have mental health issues, like, those tactics aren't necessarily going to work.
No.
And so it was funny because I was thinking about this the other night about the, like, defund the police movement. And then the next morning you had, like, drawn your pictures. And so it was like we were on the same brainwave that night or something. But I was thinking about it and about how, like, it's so, like, misinterpreted in the media, because it's not that people want cops to go away, because that would be crazy. We can't live in a lawless society. Mm-hmm. We would be back in, like, Lincoln County with Billy the Kid if that were the case. But the whole movement is just saying, like, hey, could we take some of the money that you use to buy brand new police cars every year, or buy tanks every year, or whatever, and put some of that money into hiring some mental health professionals that can respond to some of these things or assist in some of these places where cops aren't trained. Mm-hmm. And, like, I'm not asking the cops to even be trained in these things. Like, they have their job, but, like, you know, let people who are trained in these things assist. And that way we don't have these problems. Or we have fewer of them, at the very least.
Yeah. It reminds me of, you know, the nephew on Making a Murderer or whatever, and then, like, Jesse Miss Kelly of the West Memphis 3.
Right. Yeah. Exactly, yeah. And so, you know, just, like, promising these kids, like, you can go home if you'll just tell me that you did it. And these kids being like, okay, I want to go home, so I did it.
Mm-hmm. And or they just, you know, want to tell the officer what they think the officer wants to hear.
Yeah.
Or,
you know, Maurice, he might have just been, like, telling him something because he thought it'd make him look cool. Mm-hmm. You know? And so, those kinds of situations need assistance from mental health professionals who can assist the police in those kinds of interrogations. But anyway, that's my soapbox moment.
Yes.
All right. So anyway, those boys were let go. Michael Scott and Robert Springsteen were never questioned at this time. So hundreds of tips were called in, and ridiculously, there were like 50 false confessions to this crime. Like,
I never understand false confessions.
Like 50 written false confessions.
Yeah.
Not just people claiming to have done it, but writing down, I did this.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense to me, because who wants to be famous so much that they want to be known as a murderer?
Exactly. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, I've never understood false confessions that were not, like, and I'm not saying that it's okay, it just goes back to what you were saying, but, like, false confessions that were not coerced.
Right.
Like,
right.
Like, someone who's just like, yeah, I'm going to admit to this horrible crime.
Right. Well, because then they have to go through and waste resources.
Yeah, because they have to corroborate
the stories.
These things out.
It hurts the families who are just trying to find the bad guy of who did this to their children. But it also is believed that old Detective Polanco was maybe coercing some of these confessions.
Yeah.
And so he was ultimately removed from the case. He was even fired from the police department at one point. So the Austin police requested assistance from the FBI's Behavioral Science Unit, as it was known in the 90s, and Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, as well as the Texas Department of Public Safety, because they had a forensics lab at the time. Despite all of this help, no solid leads were coming up, so guess who they started investigating next?
Oh, I don't know.
The PIBs. Mm-hmm. The persons in black.
Yes.
So they were like, satanic panic, guys.
Yes.
They might have done it. But of course that also didn't come up with anything. They had even raided this one girl's house because they had heard that she had all like this, like bones and stuff in her house.
Again, going back to the West Memphis 3.
Yeah. She did have bones in her house, but it was like rat bones.
Yeah.
And like artwork. It wasn't even anything. Let's see. I lost my place. I just thought it was funny that they were called
edgy
PIBs.
junk.
Persons in black.
Yes.
So there was a Mexican national who was arrested based on a sketch of a man who had been seen sitting outside the yogurt shop the night of the murders. He confessed, but then he later recanted, saying that he had been beaten into confessing. A serial killer from Texas named Kenneth Allen McDuff was questioned in prison because I guess he had been in prison, and then he had been released due to overcrowding.
Yeah.
And so that's when this crime happened. And then he started murdering people again.
Maybe they should pick and choose better who they release due to overcrowding.
You know, you'd think. You'd be like, okay, what did you do? Oh, like, I raped and murdered a bunch of people.
Like,
what did you do? Oh, I sold some marijuana.
I was gonna say, like, maybe release the people who are in there because of, like, drug crimes.
Yeah.
Like,
not the murders.
or, like, burglary.
Right.
But not a serial killer.
Yeah. So, he had been put back in prison, and he was questioned, and he was just like, I didn't do it. If I had done it, I would tell you that I did it, just like I told you I did all of these other ones. He was
Right.
like, I would be bragging to you about it.
I'm not one to shy away from telling you that I murdered somebody.
I will tell you all about it. I think someday I'll have to look into his crimes, because
Yeah.
I had never heard of him before. So I think, trying to remember where I heard it or read it. I don't remember. I didn't write it down. But that he did admit to these murders on the day of his execution. Mm-hmm. But it's believed that he did that as a ploy to stay his execution, which failed. He was executed that night, and he's ultimately been ruled out as a suspect. So the case went cold. In 1999, so 8 years later, the case was reopened with new investigators, going over all of the old case files. And the new investigators felt that their only real suspects were the 4 teenage boys. So Maurice Pierce, Forrest Wellborn, Robert Springsteen, and Michael Scott. And they were all arrested and brought to Austin for questioning. And on that 48 Hours episode, because Sergeant Jones was no longer part of the case, he had been reassigned. But he was like so excited because he was like, oh, they must have new evidence or whatever. You know, they found something, you know, technology has changed, whatever. It was literally just based off of their original, like, confession, like Maurice's confession that they did it. So, they were all arrested and brought to Austin for questioning because they had all kind of scattered. I mean, it's 8 years later, so they're all in their 20s and stuff.
Right.
They questioned, I don't know about Robert Springsteen, but Michael Scott at least was questioned for like 20 hours over like 4 days. And he finally just confessed to the crime and implicated Robert Springsteen. So then Robert was told, hey, Michael confessed and said you were part of it.
Right.
And so he also confessed. Both, oh, sorry, I skipped a place. The problem was that Michael's details were like, some of them were confused or not exactly what, like, lined up with the crime scene. And the men both recanted their confessions, claiming that after so many hours and so many days of questioning, they finally just broke down and told the investigators what they wanted to hear.
That happens. That's another coercion tactic.
Yeah. And not only that, but there is an actual picture taken from the security camera in the interrogation room showing one of the officers pointing a gun at Michael's head. And so, you know, I don't know. So Maurice, Michael, and Robert were all indicted by a grand jury. The grand jury refused to indict Forrest Wellborn, and he came up for indictment twice, and they refused to indict him both times. And he's the one from the very beginning that was like, we were off doing other crimes.
Yeah.
I was not there. Because I think in the original confession, or maybe it was this one, that Forrest was in the car, like he was the getaway driver. And so I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know if we'll ever find out if it's true or not. But he was released from jail. So he was the first one out. The charges against Maurice were also eventually dropped for lack of evidence. And ballistics were tested on Maurice's .22, and they did not match the bullets from the crime scene. And a not so fun fact about Maurice is in 2010, he was pulled over, and I don't know exactly what the details are. I don't know if it was like a routine traffic stop or whatever, and he already had some mental health issues, and then after all of this, he was like scared of the cops or wary of the cops or whatever, and he made a bad decision and he stabbed the officer in the neck, and so the officer killed him. So Maurice is no longer with us.
That's sad.
Yep. So Robert Springsteen was tried first. Their trials were separate, and they only tried him for the murder of Amy Ayers. And the reason for this is they thought, if he's acquitted of this crime, then we can try him for the other 3 murders later. So they didn't want double jeopardy issues for all of them. The only evidence that the state had was Michael's confession against Robert. And the defense was not allowed to present alternate suspects, such as the serial killer or any alternate, like any of the confessions that had come up during the investigation. But even without any evidence, really, Robert Springsteen was found guilty and was sentenced to death after 2 days of deliberation. Michael Scott's trial began in 2002. And the state relied solely on Michael's confession and Robert's confession against Michael. Again, they only charged him with the murder of Amy. He was also found guilty and sentenced to life in prison. And I don't know why one of them was sentenced to death and one of them was sentenced to life. Like, I don't know what the difference was there. I couldn't find that specifically. I didn't dive deep enough for that one.
Right.
But, naturally, as all convicted killers go, both men appealed their convictions. I mean, it's just one of your constitutional rights, or whatever. You can do that. Both men's convictions were overturned because their constitutional rights had been violated during their trials. Because you have the right to face your accuser in court. And although Robert's confession had been used against Michael and Michael's confession had been used against Robert, neither man was allowed to be questioned in the other's trial, meaning that they were not given the opportunity to face their accuser in court. And so they were both of their convictions were overturned, and they were both released from prison. They were not exonerated. They could still face retrial.
Right.
But these specific convictions were thrown out. So the district attorney decided to put off the retrial to gather more evidence. And in 2008, because of advancements in DNA testing, they decided to retest the DNA that they had found on Amy's body. They used something called YSTR, which, if I'm understanding correctly, is just based solely on the Y chromosome and can match any male in a familial line. And so this DNA strand was not a match to any of these 4 men. The police believed that there could have been a 5th person with them, but there's no evidence to support that other than they have this DNA that doesn't match these 4 guys.
Right.
So the sample is also so small in this type of testing that they couldn't even submit it to databases like CODIS for testing. They were able to submit it to a database that's specifically for YSTR samples that's run by the University of Central Florida, and it was matched to a profile that had been submitted by the FBI. And so the Austin police are like stoked because they're like, the FBI's got somebody that matches this DNA. So they called the FBI for a name, and the FBI refused to give them a name because they had submitted, I don't know, it was like some stupid law technicality where like the sample was submitted anonymously, and so the person who submitted it was able to like legally maintain their anonymity, and it was against the law for them to give up this person's identity or whatever. But like Austin police were like, but like this could be a murderer.
Exactly.
But
That's
they
so
were
silly.
like, but there's like thousands of people that this could match because of like the familial line and everything. And they're like, so it's not even gonna like be conclusive, like you know. But after they got a Texas congressman to kind of lean on the FBI a little bit, the FBI said, okay, fine. You send us your sample and we'll test it against our sample and then we'll let you know if they match. And according to them, after testing, it was not a match. So I don't know if that could have just been a starting place for them to like look into familial DNA.
Right.
But the other thing that I thought was kind of not great as far as like evidence gathering and like the trial and stuff was that like Daryl Croft, these witnesses from the yogurt shop, were not even questioned. And I thought,
That sounds like incredible police work.
that like Daryl Croft should have been able to like look at a lineup and tell them like if that hinky kid
was one of those
these.
kids or
And, you know, the two people who had come in, well, I don't know, because they said the guys had their hoods up and they couldn't even tell whether they were men or not. But, like, I don't know, like, at least, like, give them a chance to.
Right.
But anyway, so, unfortunately, that case remains unsolved. And, you know, maybe someday they'll be able to figure it out, but I don't know.
Yeah.
With the crime scene being so
like
destroyed
obliterated
and, you know, things weren't handled correctly, and but it also was 1991. I don't know. So, but anyway, that's the horrible yogurt shop murders.
Well, fun fact, I did a Google.
Did a Goog?
Yes.
Okay.
TCBY stands for the country's best yogurt,
Oh.
but it originally stood for this can't be yogurt.
Oh my gosh.
But they got sued by a competitor
Oh.
for having a very similar name.
Ooh.
I wonder who this competitor was.
I don't know. Perhaps ICBY?
Yes. So they had to come up with a different name using their like initials.
Yeah. Because they were like, people already know our initials, so we've got to like turn it into something else.
So
kind of like NSYNC, they had to make up
a name for Lance to make it fit.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so yeah, it's officially the country's best yogurt, but it was originally this can't be yogurt.
I can't believe it's yogurt. There is like a very small New Mexico connection to this, and it's just that, you know, when they're like trying to find similar crimes, like to see if they can figure it out, they called Las Cruces about the bowling alley murders.
Yeah.
So, because that had happened, I don't know how long before this happened, but it had happened before this happened. So anyway, you're welcome for the bum out.
Well, thanks.
Yep. And you never know. These guys still could have had something to do with it. But
Exactly. Like, it's so hard to know whether or not these guys are bad guys or not.
Yep.
There wasn't enough evidence either way, and
I guess you can just hope that maybe someday there's like a deathbed confession or some kind of new technology. Maybe time travel.
Yes.
We'll just invent time travel real fast and go back and see who it was.
We'll just do that for all the crimes.
Or maybe like energy detectives. Like, where like you could like go back and like talk to ghosts. I'm not saying that the girls are ghosts, but like maybe like their like energy is still tied to the place and like, I don't know.
There was an episode of Torchwood where they had this like special glove that would bring people back to life for like a minute or something. And so they could like bring people back to life really quick and like ask them what happened.
there. Maybe Doctor Who could get on that.
And then that's kind of like pushing daisies as well. Like, he can bring people back to life for a short amount of time. And so he was like helping to solve crimes by bringing people back to life for a minute.
Well, yeah. If somebody could figure that out, that'd be great. Or, like, I guess that wouldn't work, though. I was going to say, what was the Grim Reaper show?
Dead Like Me.
Yeah, because, like, she was still her, just in a different body. Mm-hmm. And so, like, but she would have, like, these girls would have had to have, like, turned into the thing to be able to still be on the earth.
Yeah.
And I feel like they already would have figured out some way to tell somebody who killed them if that were the case.
Left a little note.
Right? Something. Yeah. So, anyway. That was not my favorite story.
No. Dead children are not usually a good time.
No, they're not. And I saw an interview, I can't remember which one's mom had said it, but it was after the guy's convictions had been overturned and about their constitutional rights. And she was like, every time I hear that, it makes me sick that their rights were violated. She was like, my children were murdered.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care about your rights.
Right.
And Eliza's mom has died since then, so even if they do figure it out, she'll never have known what happened. So, anyway, that sucks.
Yeah.
Alright, anything else before we end this?
No, I was just thinking when you were talking about mom that the other day I was...
Our mom?
Yeah.
Did I talk about our mom?
Well, you just said mom, and it made me think of our mom.
Oh, okay. Okay. You confused me. I was like, when did I talk about mom?
But, no. This has nothing to do with anything. It struck me funny that the other day I had watched either a podcast or like an episode of 48 Hours or something. I think it was a podcast though. And I don't even remember what the case was, but then later that evening I was dealing with the kittens or something, and mom had her TV on one of the crime channels that she watches, and whatever crime show she was watching was the exact same case that I had just watched.
Oh, yeah. Well, mom, again, the other night, she doesn't hear very well.
Yeah.
And so she claims we sneak up on her all the time, even though, like, we're literally just walking into the same room that she's in.
And I try to come up with ways
Me too.
to, like, not scare her. Like, earlier outside, like, I'll try to come from, like, the side where she sees me in her periphery.
Or slam the door, so maybe, I don't know.
But she still gets scared, and...
But I walked into her room, and she jumped, and it was more like yes, I startled her because she didn't hear me coming, but whatever crime show she was watching, she was spooked by.
Yeah.
Which is funny because she doesn't spook very easily. And she was like, I've seen this case on other crime shows and I know what's gonna happen, but it still spooks me every time.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it was. I'm gonna have to go find it because I was like, maybe that one's good.
Right.
I mean, not like good.
No, but maybe that one's worth telling.
Yes. So anyway, you can find us on social media at Twisted and Mysterious. You can email us at twistedandmysteriousPodcast@gmail.com. Don't forget to put the word podcast in there or else it will go to a stranger. And
We're convinced that that's why we get no emails.
that's it.
Because you guys keep forgetting to put the word podcast. And so
That's
all
the one.
of your emails that you send us.
All of them.
All the dozens and dozens of emails that we get are going to these strangers.
That's right.
That have nothing to do with our podcast.
And they're just like, why do these people keep emailing me?
Why do these random people keep telling us their creepy stories?
Yep. So that's got to be it. So make sure you put the correct words in there.
Also, tell all your friends so we can quit our jobs.
That's right. Please. Because retail is not for me.
No.
And
dealing with humans is not for me.
You know what? I think if we could just get somebody in South America to listen to us, that would like break the gate open.
I think so. I think that would be the catalyst to
I think
our
that's
fame.
what it is.
So again, if you know anyone in South America, just get them to download one of our podcasts. I mean, I would prefer they listen to it, but
Absolutely.
if you could just get them to download one of our podcasts,
it's gonna break this whole thing wide open.
Yes.
All right. Well, I'm sleepy, and I have to edit this before I go to bed.
Yeah. So as always, remember that people are gross, and please don't get murdered.